We're at the YouTube Space Toronto studio shooting with the Nikon D500. Now if you need a quick guide to shooting video with the D500, give me 3 minutes to help you get started. Now these are going to be the basics for beginners, but if you can stick around, I'll share some advanced tips. Use an XQD memory card if you have, otherwise SD rated U3 or higher. On the setup menu, after you make sure content on the cards has been backed up, format the cards. On the movie menu, select Destination. Check that the focus switches on the lens and the camera are on A, and if the lens has VR, turn it on. Switch to the movie position and press the Live View button. Now there are several screen options. Press Info to cycle through, a clean screen with the basic exposure settings, a grid, although I prefer thirds over quarters, a histogram to check your exposure, more details on that in a minute, and a level. Now I prefer this screen, although it's a little cluttered. It allows me to check audio levels using the meter bottom left. Press Mode and select M. Use the back dial to set the shutter to 1/60 and the front dial to set the aperture. I've selected f4 for a shallow depth of field that will help me stand out a little bit from a soft and blurry background. Now increase the f-stop if you want a sharper background. Press the ISO button and turn the front dial to ISO Auto. Press the meter button and use the back dial to select the appropriate meter setting. I'm using Matrix, but if your subject is in the spotlight, use Highlight Spot, the one with the asterisk. Press I and check that the image area is DX, or you can increase your lens's reach by using 1.3 with little loss in quality. I'm going to be shooting 4K 30, but for technical reasons I can't demonstrate that in this video. If your computer can't handle 4K, use 1080-30. It's the HD standard. Movie quality high, you didn't buy the D500 to compromise now. And unless you're using an external mic, I'll cover that in a minute, use auto mic sensitivity. Wide frequency, wind noise based on your location, monitor brightness as required. Multi-selector power aperture, off. Highlight display, off, but I'll cover that in a minute too. And VR on, unless you're using a tripod, or if you're shooting in 4K. Press WB and use the rear dial to set the white balance. Don't use auto for video. And if you like, press the key and select a picture control. This is personal taste. I usually select neutral. Press the focus button and select AFS and wide, but because it's me talking to camera, I'm using face detect. To focus an object, touch it, or use the joystick to position and press the AF on button. Try not to do this while recording. Press the red button to start recording. And remember that individual segments are limited to 30 minutes. The camera will stop when the 30 minutes is up, but you can start again right away. Well, that should get you rolling. Now, let me share some advanced tips. These are the settings that will give you a little more control. And let's start with exposure. And although you can probably judge what's over and underexposed by looking, the histogram gives you some additional information. The display should be centered to be properly exposed. And if it's not, or if for artistic reasons you want the scene to look darker or brighter, first turn the auto ISO off. Then use the back dial to set the ISO to your preference. You can adjust the ISO while recording, and you can also make aperture adjustments by turning the multi-selector aperture on. Then use the multi-selector to change the aperture, but for changing lighting conditions, the auto ISO will do a better job. To make sure you're not blowing out highlights, turn the highlight display on. That gives you a clear indication that they're overexposed. If you do have a very contrasty setting, and don't mind making some adjustment to the color when editing, using the flat profile will increase the dynamic range by a couple of stops. And for more accurate color, set a custom white balance, which is really easy with the D500. Press WB, select a preset, then hold the WB button until pre-flashes. Touch the screen on a white object and save the setting. When autofocus doesn't do what you want, use manual. Just turn the switch on the camera to M. To help focus, press the magnify button to close in on your subject. Press demagnify to return to the normal view. For better audio, or really for anything where audio is important to you other than just general background sound, use an external microphone. I'm wearing a Rode wireless kit for this. It plugs into the camera. And while you're at it, plug in a headphone so that you can monitor the recording as well. And I'd also recommend that you set your audio levels manually by watching the meters. They should be peeking into the yellow but not hitting the red any too often. There's one accessory I find very useful, a viewfinder adapter for the screen. It provides both stability and makes the screen easier to see on sunny days. If you have an external monitor or recorder, the D500 has an HDMI connector. Configure it on the Setup menu, HDMI. You can set the output resolution if auto doesn't work. The output range can limit the output, useful for some pro broadcast situations, and the output display size can be reduced, useful for some monitors but not for recording. Turn the on-screen display off if you're recording, but it's automatically off if you're recording 4K. Dual monitor turns the camera screen off, but you'll still see the menu on the camera. The D500 has a time-lapse mode with an extensive range of settings for interval and shooting time. You can't take stills while recording video. If you press the shutter, recording will stop. Well, as always, thanks for watching. If you have relevant questions or civil comments, I do reply to them all. And don't be afraid to subscribe.